There were a lot of questions that needed to be answered going into UFC 277. The GOAT of women's MMA, Amanda Nunes, lost her bantamweight title to Julianna Pea in December at UFC 269, which was perhaps the biggest upset in UFC history. The Lioness got her match in Texas, where she had the chance to prove that the last fight was nothing but a big ol' fluke. There were a lot of doubters along the way, including Dana White himself. Let's look at what he said. First up, how the first fight went down. If we talk about women's MMA, this particular upset triumphs the head kick KO of Ronda Rousey and Holly Holmes. Amanda Nunes was considered to be almost invincible in the bantamweight and featherweight divisions. The only person who could potentially test her was Valentina Shevchenko, in a trilogy which might happen pretty soon. But more on that later. Pea got the title shot by a lot of trash talking and claiming to bring the fight to Amanda. She called her a quitter, someone who's only comfortable being a hammer, and frankly, none of us took her seriously. In hindsight, she was right. The biggest takeaway from the first fight was that Pea did exactly what she said she was gonna do. Despite losing the first round, she threatened submissions off her back, and in the second, she did what most girls were scared of doing. Pea made it a brawl and took Nunes' best shots in a slugfest while returning her own. She managed to hurt Amanda and locked her in a rear naked choke without the hooks in. We had a new champion, and it looked like maybe the reign of the GOAT was over. Next up, the build-up into the rematch. There had to be a rematch since Amanda was such a dominant champion. The UFC did a great job of promoting the fight by putting the two against each other as coaches on The Ultimate Fighter. If there wasn't enough heat already, the two couldn't wait to get their hands on each other by the time they were done with the show. Most of the odd makers still had Amanda as a 2-1 favorite, despite the fact that she had dominated in the first one. Most people believed, even though she was the better fighter, Pea's toughness carried her to the win. The biggest thing that worked in Julianna's favor was the fact that Amanda had been the champion for so long. She was no longer hungry anymore, which brings us to what Dana White said. In an interview with ESPN, Dana White was asked about Amanda Nunes and her future. Dana's always had a great relationship with Nunes. He went on to say that people always give him crap for not paying the fighters enough. But in this case, Amanda has made millions and is set for life. She's got a wife and a daughter, and it looks like she may not have the same motivation anymore. Nunes did an interview as well before her fight, in which Dana's comments were brought up. The featherweight champ didn't seem to mind what Dana said, and that the boss had some truth in her words. She accepted the fact that she got a little comfortable, and with the way her last few fights had played out, she thought she could slow down. In her defense, she explained that when you've done what she's done, you want to spend time with your family, travel, or take a little rest. You want to slow down, which is what she did, and maybe that's what cost her. She made it clear that this was only the case until Julianna came into the scene. Now she's motivated and hungry to get her revenge. Throughout the fight week, Amanda kept saying that she wanted to become a double champion again, so her intention would have to be win the title and reign over two divisions again, like this fight never even happened. Now for the big news, the shutout performance by Amanda Nunes. The rematch finally took place in Texas at UFC 277 last week, and it was one of the most brutal fights to watch. Amanda stuck to the game plan and remained technical on the feet, where she had a clear advantage. She went on to drop Pea about 5 times in the first few rounds. Blood flew all over the cage and even splashed outside, as reported by several media members. The toughness of Pea was on full display, despite getting rocked, dropped, cut, and bloodied up. She did not think about quitting for even a second. By the end of it, there was a chunk of skin missing from the forehead of Pea, and Dana even said that she's gonna need plastic surgery for it. All the fans marveled at the warrior spirit of the former bantamweight champion, but it was clear who was the better fighter. When the scorecards were announced, one of the judges had it 50-43, which makes it only the third time a title fight in the UFC has had this scorecard. The only other two people to have that accomplishment are George St. Pierre and Khabib Nurmagomedov. This is also only the 6th time a champion has regained their title in a rematch by beating the same person who took the title away from them. It was a night of UFC history, and one that we won't forget for a while. Up next, what's next for the Lioness? In her post-fight press conference, Amanda said that she'd like for her next fight to be at featherweight. The women's featherweight division in the UFC isn't the most active, and it hardly has enough contenders to make a top 10 list. But maybe the promotion is waiting on some big names like Kayla Harrison and Chris Cyborg to be signed, so the division can have some more eyeballs on it. Dana said that he's willing to do anything Amanda wants next. He was even pitched with the idea of making the Shevchenko trilogy next, which was something he liked. At this point in their respective careers, they both need someone to push them. When you're as dominant as they are, it's hard to be motivated for just another contender. It's likely that they're both the toughest fight for each other, and as we've seen in their last 2 battles, their skill levels are extremely close. Valentina Pena thought she won the rematch, but officially they're 2-0 in favor of Nunes. This could be the perfect time to book that fight again. Other related news. First up, the Assassin Baby gets the win. In the co-main event of UFC 277, Brandon Moreno was set to face Kai Kara France for the interim flyweight title. The two had previously fought at UFC Apex, and it was a fun fight that led to a unanimous decision victory for Moreno. The former champion was looking to win this one, so he could finally have that trilogy with Figgy. Many people thought Moreno won the third fight, and Joe Rogan said that multiple times during the event, which was a little weird. The fight was action-packed for as long as it lasted, with Moreno in control for the first 2 rounds. In the third, Kara France was looking to take control and doing pretty well until a brutal body kick that floored Kai, and Moreno got the TKO win. After the fight was over, the UFC let the undisputed champ inside the cage, just like old times, so Moreno could have a face-off with his future opponent. There was some trash talk from Figgy's side, but Moreno kept it professional. Looks like they're gonna run it for the 4th time. It'll be the first ever quadrilogy in UFC history, and it couldn't happen between 2 better guys. Next up, Drew Dober gets a body shot KO. UFC 277 was the night of body shot KOs. In the prelims, the fan favorite, Drew Dober, KO'd Rafael Alves with a brutal hook straight to the body. Alves had incredible head movement, which led to Dober looking for body shots. With this KO, he's tied at the 2nd place for the most knockouts in lightweight history. The only person ahead of him is Dustin Poirier with 8. And speaking of Poirier, so finally, Michael Chandler wants to KO Dustin Poirier. Fans are itching to see Dustin Poirier back inside the octagon. The last time he was in there, he lost to Charles Oliveira. Since then, he's been itching to return, but he hasn't been offered a contract yet. The one matchup that makes the most sense right now is him and Michael Chandler. The two had a verbal altercation that went viral a couple of events ago, and it looks like there's no love lost between the two. Poirier was asked about the altercation, in which he was the aggressor, calling Chandler a phony and a fake. He responded by saying that he's not someone who likes to talk in front of the camera, and if he's got something to say, he'll say it to the person face to face. And on that day, he had something to say to Chandler. When asked the same question, Chandler said that Dustin Poirier is a guy who's already got one foot out the door. He's considering retirement and moving up to welterweight. He doubts that Dustin has the same motivation to win and become a champion, and if the two end up fighting, he'll knock Poirier out. Honestly, we really want this fight to happen. It's almost definitely gonna be a banger. That's a wrap for this video. What were your thoughts on Nunes' performance? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.